Jimmy Johnson is hoping to run more NASCAR races in 2026 and also confirms that Daniel Suarez will not be part of Legacy Motor Club in 2026. And talks are continuing that Chicagoland Speedway could be back on the NASCAR schedule in 2026. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just show them straight those really quickly. We're going to start by talking about Cookie Monster. As Jeff Gluck noted a couple days ago, the Cookie Monster will be hosting a presser at Indianapolis Motor Speedway before the Brickyard 400 takes place. Now, Cookie Monster is going to give the command for the 2025 Brickyard 400, and he'll be having it on Sunday, I believe around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, about an hour or so before the NASCAR Cup Series race officially kicks off. I think it's kind of cool the Cookie Monster is given the command. I know there's some people that are not excited about that, but honestly, I think it's kind of cool that he's going to be given the command. It's someone that's part of a lot of people's childhoods, and I think it's phenomenal, and I think he'll do a pretty good job giving the command. A lot of people think he's going to eat the mic, which I think is certainly possible for Cookie Monster, but nonetheless, pretty cool. He'll get the chance to host a presser for the race at Indy. I think it'll be very interesting to see how things play out from that front. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Bristol Motor Speedway. As it was reported by MLB The Show for 25, that Bristol Motor Speedway will be in MLB 25 and will be officially added on July 29th, a couple days before the MLB Fall Classic takes place. Now, of course, the Reds and the Braves are going to be playing an MLB game at Bristol Motor Speedway on August 2nd. We'll talk about the Budweiser announcement here in just a short little bit that's associated with Dale Jr., but I think it's pretty cool that this track will be in MLB The Show 25. I think it's the track, I gotta say, and the layout they've got for. I think from everything that I've seen, there's a lot of excitement for this game, and I think this could be a major deal. It's kind of like the new Fields of Dreams that we're going to see. Plus, this is going to be the first time I believe the MLB in a long time has actually played in the state of Tennessee, which I think is a really cool deal with the two teams that are closest to the Tennessee and Bristol area. I think that is a really cool thing, but I also am pretty excited to see that Bristol Motor Speedway will be in MLB 25. I find that to be really exciting overall, in my opinion. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Budweiser. As it was officially announced earlier today that Budweiser will be teaming up with Dale Jr. in the number 8 car for the late model event coming up, and they will also be part of the MLB Speedway Classic on August 2nd, as I believe there will be a pit crew challenge that is going to be taking place during that time as well. Obviously, Budweiser's been having a working relationship with Dale Jr. since the end of last year. They brought the legendary Bud and number 8 car back for a late model event at Florence Speedway for the South Carolina 400, and some other big things that have been doing with Dale Jr. as well. I think this is really awesome to see that Budweiser Dale Jr. partnership has been growing once again. They have the All-Star Game car that he ran when he won the 2001 Pepsi 400, one of the most emotional wins in NASCAR Cup history, and they're bringing that back once again as Jr. is going to run that during the throwback weekend at Caraway Speedway. There's some other legendary schemes from the 2000s and the 90s and all that are going to be in that event. Jr. will be competing in that event at Caraway coming up very, very soon. So I think that's really exciting, and I think it's cool that Budweiser will be teaming up with Dale Jr. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Boston Oliver. As it was announced earlier today and reported by Declan Wayman that Boston Oliver will make his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut this week in Indianapolis Raceway Park as he'll drive the number 74 truck for Mike Harmon Racing. I did a little bit of digging on Boston Oliver. I believe Boston Oliver is around maybe 18 or 19 years old. He's been competing, of course, at the National Fairgrounds Speedway in recent years, and I think he's won a couple races in that as well. I'm not sure how Boston's going to do. This truck does have to qualify in on speed, with only running one race so far this year, and I don't realistically see this truck being a major factor to make the event. I don't remember how many trucks are going to be running this week in IRP, so if there are 35 trucks showing up, he should be able to make it in with no issues and no problems. I think he's going to have a solid opportunity here. We'll see how he does, and we'll see if Boston Oliver can have a good run. I like to see this truck run well. I don't expect it to be a major contender, but I think it's cool he'll get the opportunity to make his NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series debut this weekend at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And now we're going to head jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Aaron McLaren. Now, we have a couple Aaron McLaren stories to talk about today on the channel. The first one revolves around the new shop. As it was announced earlier today, the Aaron McLaren has taken ownership of an old Andretti shop and they'll relocate there in 2026. The Andretti team, of course, moving on to the new Cadillac shop, I believe, for next year, and they're relocating, I believe, to a different part of the Indianapolis area going forward with the Cadillac partnership coming in for the Formula One program next next year. So Aaron McLaren is going into that new shop next season. I think we might have been one that Andretti Green had not too long ago, and I think that they'll do a really good job renovating that shop for the upcoming season next year, as that team continues to be the number one Chevrolet team currently at the moment in IndyCar right now. And they've been the fastest Chevy team, as of course Pat O'Ward has picked up 2 of the last 3 wins in IndyCar recently. So I expect that things are going to continue getting better on that front. I love the old look that they're going to be using. They had a lot of really cool promotion toward that. I think that's kind of cool to look at. And in general, I love they're moving into the old Andretti shop. It's kind of like how 2011 kind of were moving into their own stuff for the future, but I think it's cool to moving into the old Andretti shop going forward and relocating there in 2026. Some things are kind of unknown what the future of that team is going to look like, or how long they're going to be there, but nonetheless pretty cool. They're going to have their new shop going forward into the not so distant future. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Jordan Anderson. As it was announced earlier today that Jordan Anderson will drive the 20 for Young's Motorsports in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race to later tonight at Indianapolis Raceway Park. It was also confirmed that Bommarito Automotive Group will sponsor him in this event as well. I don't remember the last time Jordan Anderson competed in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. I gotta be honest, I think it's actually been quite a little bit of time. Might have been at least a couple years at this point. As of course, Jordan Anderson has been fully focused on trying to make his Xfinity Series program run really, really well. And of course, he's made some select starts in NASCAR Xfinity Series competition, with Larry McReynolds being the crew chief and having some decent runs in Xfinity, including scoring a top 5 at Daytona International Speedway. I think we're going to see Jordan run quite well, because Jordan, of course, came very close to winning some Truck Series races at Daytona International Speedway in 2019 and 2020. And I think that Jordan will have a solid opportunity here to do very well at IRPs. I think the Young's Motorsports team, while they haven't been super, super strong, there's been times where that 20 truck, especially with Stephen Parsons, has run quite well. So I think that this truck will have some decent pace and speed. I think realistically the goal is top 25. I know the field's not as competitive in trucks currently at the moment, but I do expect that Jordan is going to be solid. I think he'll have a good chance and opportunity to do really well with Young's Motorsports this weekend at the Truck Series race at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Tristan McKeen. As it was announced earlier today that Tristan McKeen has once again signed another development contract with Spire Motorsports and will make a couple starts of Spire Motorsports in the ARCA Menard Series in 2025. He'll drive the number 77 for Spire Motorsports in 2 ARCA races this year, at Watkins Glen in a couple weeks from now, and then in the season finale at Phoenix Raceway. For those who don't know, Tristan McKeen is a 14-year-old development driver who will turn 15 in the next couple of weeks. Once you turn 15 years old at Trackside Watkins Glen, you are eligible to run that event. Tristan is someone who has had a little bit of someone who can sometimes drive way in over aggressive at points, but Spire Motorsports is very high on this young driver. I've seen the guy have decent success. I think he's competing in the PLM series for the Cars Pro Tour, and I think he's shown some decent success in that, and I think he's won some races as well at just a young age of 14. Now, we do have to note, though, like I mentioned, some have kind of compared him to Connor Jones. I can't really get to that level at this point. I think he's had a little more success over than Connor Jones. But I think especially got to look at the age. He's only 14 years old currently at the moment, and I think this is going to be a really big opportunity for him. We don't even know what the full lineup is going to be. I do think Brent Kurz is driving an 18 car during that weekend, if I'm not mistaken. He's probably going to be the odds-on favorite to win in the number 18. But I think Tristan McKeen could run well, because Corey Days has some decent speed in the 77 in the few races that he has ran. And I think it's good that Spire is bringing back that program. Now, I don't know what the sponsorship side of things is going to look like for the events, but I think at the end of the day, I think it'll be pretty good. I think it'll show some good pace and speed. I think realistically, the top 5, top 10 is the goal, and I think we'll have a solid chance and opportunity. Good to see him get an opportunity to work with this team coming up here very soon in ARCA and making a few starts. And I don't think it'll be that long before he's racing in ARCA East full-time in 26, and probably in the next couple of years will be in ARCA full-time. And what's crazy is I'm 10 years older than this guy, which is absolutely wild. I feel old at this point. Good to see him get the chance and opportunity to be part of the Spire program. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Max Verstappen. There has been a lot of talk and a lot of chatter surrounding the long-term future of Max Verstappen and what he is going to be doing in 2026. This stems from the fact that Max Verstappen has, of course, there's been a lot of talk to Max Verstappen, despite the fact that he does have a contract with Red Bull for 2028. There's a lot of people that do think that Max Verstappen could leave Red Bull at the end of 2025 and perhaps could end up at Mercedes next year. Now, Max Verstappen was asked this question for the media before the weekend takes place at Spa, and Max Verstappen basically spoke on the future with Red Bull and says it's a very blunt answer. He really couldn't say much outside of the fact that I could basically wake up and I may not be racing anymore, or my racing career could be over, and I may not be racing next year in 2026. I love how blunt Max Verstappen is, in all honesty. I like that he's not afraid to kind of speak his mind on situations and things. Now, there has been also some speculation as well around Max Verstappen that he might still stick around with Red Bull next year. There's some uncertainty, and some people think he could end up at Aston Martin in the future, considering Aston Martin's going to have Adrian Newey down the road, and I think they would absolutely love to bring Max Verstappen into the program in the future. I personally think they got to get rid of Lance Stroll for that team to show any sort of success, but Lance's father owns the organization, so that's probably not going to happen. But I think you got to look at this for Max. The Red Bull cars are just not fast currently at the moment, and Max is absolutely carrying that team. He is third in the standings in a car that should be nowhere near in third in the points. There is no reason Max Verstappen should be winning races in that car. He's got 2 wins so far this year, and it's mind-boggling considering how slow that Red Bull car has been. Look at Yuki Tsunoda, for example. Yuki Tsunoda has been really struggling with the Red Bull team this season, and it just has not shown the pace and has not shown the speed throughout the year, and it's just because the car over at Red Bull is just not working right now toward their advantage at the moment. That's why people think him going to Mercedes makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, some think that this could impact the future of Kimi Antonelli, and Kimi's shown some decent speed this year as a rookie. He's been the fastest rookie without question this year, and have been the only rookie times that has competed for wins in Formula One this season. And rookies don't usually do that. So I think that Max could end up over Mercedes, but I think some also think there's a very realistic chance that Max is going to stick around with Red Bull past this year and continue driving for them in 2026, and may just in general finish the contract with the team. So we'll see what happens currently at the moment, but as of right now, it's unknown what their things are going to go with Max. There's a chance he stays at Red Bull, and there's also a chance, a possibility, that he could end up with Mercedes in 2026. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There's been a lot of talks and questions surrounding what package that NASCAR will be using for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Well, Bob Pockrass did confirm, and it's not the best news in my opinion. He confirmed last night that Xfinity Series will have the Super Speedway package that they've run at Atlanta Motor Speedway, Daytona, and Talladega, with the aerodynamic package being very similar to the intermediate package that we also use at Atlanta Motor Speedway as well. They ran this package in 2024, and to be honest, I know a lot of people were really hyped about this race, and granted, we had a really good finish between Riley Herbst, Eric Almirola, and Cole Custer. That finish, in my opinion, was really, really good. The racing throughout the event was not the most exciting. He had a lot of packs. It was very difficult to pass, especially early in the race, and I think the Cup race, Brickyard Warner, was a lot better. They ran this package, of course, in 2018, and yeah, you had a really awesome 4-wide finish at the end of the stage, but outside of that, do you really remember anything about the 2018 event outside of the fact that Justin Allgaier won that race? I don't really remember much about that race, and this package just does not work, in my opinion, for a track like this. It didn't really work in Michigan at all, and again, it was better last year than I thought it was going to be, but the racing just wasn't that great. I think they need the full package because the Xfinity Series cars race so much better than the Cup Series cars generally do, especially at a track like this. It races kind of similar to Pocono, and Xfinity Series had the best race of the weekend at Pocono. Had a really solid racing, had a good finish, had fun stuff going on throughout the event, and it was generally really exciting. I think the Xfinity Series should be able to put on the best product out there, and the fact that they are getting restricted that opportunity to do that is really disappointing because they want to make the Cup Series the number one thing. And again, I mentioned this, the Xfinity Series, again, puts on the best product generally a lot of times. So I will say the Truck Series also has done a pretty good job on that front as well. Nonetheless, like I mentioned, it's disappointing here. They're not going to be having a normal package for the event. I don't think the Super Speedway package works personally. Some will disagree. That's fine. But I don't think the racing is going to be good. I think it's going to be a little disappointing. And I think people are going to be generally very underwhelmed with the racing that will take place at the Xfinity Series event. And I personally think we should be probably racing Indianapolis Raceway Park. I think Cup should be the only series racing Indianapolis currently at the moment. So I think the racing at IRP is going to be a lot better for trucks than the Xfinity Series is going to be at Indianapolis. I wish Xfinity was currently at IRP, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Aaron McLaren. There was an article that surfaced earlier today by Nathan Brown from the Indy Star that suggested something very interesting in the article. According to what he reported, it sounds like Aaron McLaren is going to be holding a rookie test for a driver with a pedigree for potentially running the Indy 500 in the not-so-distant future. Now, I did not read the article, but apparently what Nathan Brown had insinuated was it potentially could be a four-time Formula One champion that used to race in Formula One not too long ago. A lot of people are talking about who could potentially this be. Some are thinking it could be Max Verstappen, who of course is a four-time Formula One champion. However, Max Verstappen has stated many times publicly, including back in 2022, that he has no interest in doing the Indy 500. Some said it could be Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel, of course, is a four-time Formula One champion, has not been racing much in Formula One, has not raced in Formula One in a couple years, and Sebastian's kind of been more focused on other things and hasn't been doing a lot of racing as of late. I think it could be someone different at this point that is not associated with Formula One. It is someone that has a pedigree. It is someone who has expressed interest in running the Indy 500 in the past and actually almost had to deal with Aaron McLaren to run the Indy 500 in 2024, but Kyle Larson took that opportunity. That name is Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch had an opportunity to drive for this team. Kyle Busch has said and expressed interest in wanting to run the Indy 500. With Kyle Larson no longer running the Indy 500 next year and probably not going to run the Indy 500 at least for the foreseeable future, and Kyle Busch wanting to run the Indy 500, I think that is who the driver will likely end up being. Yes, Kyle Busch has not been as strong in recent years in NASCAR competition, but I think he's one that makes the most sense to me for this deal. One, he still drives for Chevrolet currently at the moment and has a contract with Rich Schultz Racing through the remainder of the year. Number two, he probably has sponsorship backing him. He's got his own energy drink, well, not his own energy drink company anymore, but he's got sponsorship from First Form Energy. Cheddar's could absolutely be a potential partner there, which would be really big for IndyCar. And I think Kyle Busch is the one that makes the most sense. It could be someone else we're not thinking of. It could be like a Shane Van Gisbergen, for example. SVG, I think, would love to run the Indy 500 down the road, and I think it'd be cool for him to do the double, considering he's really good friends with Scott McLaughlin. I think that'd be a really cool opportunity for SVG to go and do, but Trackhouse had to be in some sort of association with that, considering SVG is expected to be back with the Trackhouse Racing team, and probably going to put more focus on trying to make him get better at the ovals going forward into the future. So we'll see what happens down the road on who this driver could be. I'm very interested to see who this driver could be with a solid pedigree. I think that's going to be the interesting thing, and we'll see what happens with that, but I love that we're probably going to see some sort of test. We'll probably find out who the driver is going forward very soon. It's not going to be Larson. It could be Chase Elliott. It could be like a William Byron. It could be someone from different form of racing, like a Sebastian Loeb. That'd be really cool. Maybe someone mentioned Daniel Ricciardo. I'm interested to see who this driver could be, though, that could get a test for the Indy 500. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about NASCAR 25. As it was officially announced earlier today that the NASCAR 25 release date has been officially announced and confirmed. The game is going to be coming out on October 14th. It'll be released to the Xbox Series X and will also be released to the PlayStation 5 as well. A release date for the PC has not been announced, but it will be announced at a later date. And this game, of course, will not be on the Nintendo Switch. And remember, this game will not be on the previous gen consoles like the Xbox One or, of course, the PlayStation 4. It will be only on the new next-gen consoles. Now, obviously, many people did see the trailer and the teaser trailer that came out earlier today, just announcing the date. I think a lot of people are taking a little bit way too much stock into that teaser trailer, and we're probably not going to get an official trailer for the game or gameplay for the game until the not-so-distant future. Now, we are expecting to see the driver rosters by the end of this month, and I do expect that to come here very, very soon. And I also do expect some other stuff to be announced around that, including the driver rosters and probably all the tracks that are going to be in the game as well. Now, I saw a lot of people in the industry and a lot of people talking about this release, and I think there's definitely some people that are kind of having way extreme expectations. And I'm going to say this right here currently at the moment. I do understand the skepticism from a lot of fans, right, that are wanting this game to be really, really good, because we have been burnt by these companies before. Think about motorsports games with NASCAR 21 Ignition. We had a lot of really big promises, and then the game released, and NASCAR 21 Ignition was the worst NASCAR game ever released. Utenix did not do the best job. The prior game, 704 Games, their games got better, and a lot of people from 704 Games went over to the iRacing company, and iRacing kind of acquired that, I believe. But the games were not generally good, but I will say NASCAR 4 was a really, really solid game. So I understand the skepticism and the worry toward the game. But some of the expectations I have seen from the fan base have been absolutely unrealistic, especially for a first-year game. There's people wanting this game to be like iRacing. If you want iRacing, go and get an iRacing subscription. It is not realistic to expect this game to be exactly like iRacing. Go, if you want to be on iRacing, go and do it. Also, some of the expectations should not be put on for a first-year game. I get that split screen not being there sucks. That I agree. Split screen should probably be part of it. And that's probably something they're going to do in the future. Also, release date, I know people talk about February. They've got quarterlies they have to go through. I think people need to be realistic with their expectations. Do not expect this game to be the best NASCAR game ever released. It's probably not going to be the best game ever released. But the main thing you need to focus on is making sure the game plays good, is playable, and the cars are drivable. They're focusing a lot on the physics, and they're focusing on that. It's probably not going to be the most intricate game. All the stuff, though, down the road they've said will be eventually added. I hope we get more information. I really think a gameplay trailer needs to come out, and I think people need to wait until the actual gameplay trailer comes out. Don't look at certain posts that have been put up on Twitter. Wait for the actual gameplay to be released, and it's probably going to be released in the future. Probably by the time we get to Daytona, that is going to be released. That's what some are expecting at this point. And again, there's more information going to come out here really soon on the game. Let's be patient about it, please. I get the skepticism. I understand people being upset and frustrated about some of the things, but I think some of the people have realistically way too high of expectations, and I think you're going to be disappointed if the game is not how you expect. This shouldn't have the expectations of being NASCAR 24 or NASCAR 2004. People shouldn't have those expectations, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Jimmie Johnson. Now, we're going to talk about the future of that third charter here in just a short little bit. But Jimmie Johnson, of course, having a press conference with a lot of media members earlier this week after it was announced, of course, that NASCAR will be racing at San Diego at the Naval Base Coronado in 2026. And Jimmie Johnson has confirmed that he, in fact, wants to compete at the race in San Diego in 2026. He says he is going to do everything in his power, in his way, to make sure he competes at his hometown area and race in San Diego. He also did confirm as well that he is looking to run more races in 2026 as well. He says if Legacy Motor Club does end up getting a third charter next year, that he definitely hopes and plans to run in more NASCAR races in 2026 as well. Now, one big thing to note, Jimmie Johnson, by the start of next year, will be 50 years old. It is very rare nowadays. It used to be kind of common back then, but it's very rare nowadays that you see drivers racing into their early 50s. And Jimmie Johnson has not been super competitive. Now, granted, of course, he did finish third at the Daytona 500 earlier this year, but he kind of got lucky to get a top 5 finish in the event after getting caught up in a couple other crashes, I believe, earlier in the night. But Jimmie Johnson is wanting to run more events. And again, it all depends on if they do get a third car. The name that keeps getting brought up as a potential possibility for a development driver is Jesse Love. Jesse Love's name has been linked over to Legacy Motor Club for 2025, and it could be a potential thing where, let's say, like the third car could be a split between Jimmie Johnson and Jesse Love, where Jesse Love gets a few starts in that car or runs majority of the season to get prepared for next year. But then, of course, he doesn't run a lot. Now, I think if Jesse Love jumps in full-time next year in Cup Series competition, he's going to lose a Rookie of the Year battle to Connor Zilisch, who will be in the 99 car next year, more than likely, or 87, whichever number they end up using. But I think that Jesse Love would struggle a bit. Some think it could be like Riley Herbst, and I don't disagree, except I do think Jesse Love has a lot of talent. I don't think he's on the level of, let's say, Corey Heim or Connor Zilisch, but I think he's up there as someone who could be very good. But my other question I have to ask is, if this is not the only race that Jimmie Johnson is planning currently at the moment right now, what other races are on Jimmie Johnson's docket? Could we see Jimmie Johnson run, let's say, at like the Coca-Cola 600, for example? Because I know Jimmie Johnson has ran it the last couple years. Unfortunately, crashed out of the event in 2025. I think that's a race he had to have circled. I think that he would like to probably run the season finale at Homestead if he can do that. I think he's going to try to run the Daytona 500 more than likely. Jimmie Johnson said yes, he wants to do that. But also we know Scott Dixon has expressed interest in wanting to run the Daytona 500 as well, with Legacy perhaps next year. So that could also be a potential shout and possibility. And I think that there's some other potentials here that could happen for next year for Jimmie. But I like that Jimmie wants to come and race at least a couple times. And no, I don't think it affects Jimmy Johnson's legacy. Yes, I know Jimmy Johnson has not won a NASCAR race in almost a decade at this point, but if Jimmy Johnson wants to run, considering he's the owner of the team, and he feels like he's a contributing lot when he is the owner of the team, I can't blame him for wanting to do that. And I get that some people don't love that, and that's fine and understandable. But to me, I think for Jimmy Johnson, it is important. It makes sense. He's getting more involved with the team. And you look at legacy. They have shown a lot of improvement. They've been getting a lot quicker. They've been getting a lot faster. Now you got to look at the other thing too. The lawsuit going on between Legacy and Rick Ware. That's going to be the big thing to watch out for. Obviously, some think that TJ Pusher is not going to be able to expand a 3-car team like he wants to by 2027. And some think that Legacy is going to win that lawsuit overall. That is going to be the big thing to watch at this point when we look at that. So we'll see what happens with that lawsuit going on right now. But there is a chance and possibility that we are going to see Jimmy Johnson run more races next year. And I find that to be really exciting and kind of cool that might happen in the not-so-distant future, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the first of two major stories in today's episode as we're talking about Chicagoland Speedway. Now, we already talked about the fact that the 2026 NASCAR schedule is expected to be released in the coming months in a video earlier today and in the coming weeks as well. And one track that there's been a lot of talk around, of course, is Chicagoland Speedway. And many are expecting that that track will, in fact, be on the NASCAR schedule next year. There was an article that surfaced, I believe, from Crane News, if I'm not mistaken, and there was a quote that Adam Stern brought up. He basically says something that NASCAR had said. I'm not sure exactly when this interview took place, but NASCAR says, well, they don't have a timeline for when they're going to race there. They hope to bring the track back in the not-so-distant future. This is not confirming, of course, this track will be on the schedule for 2026, but as I've heard, and many of you have probably heard at this point, there is a lot of talk and a lot of speculation that NASCAR will in fact be returning to Chicagoland Speedway in 2026. And we're not exactly sure, like I said, when this interview officially took place. But the expectation is currently at the moment is that NASCAR will be back at Chicagoland Speedway for the 2026 year and 2026 season. One, NASCAR does not want to leave the Chicago market. They want to be in that market for next year. And I think this track would absolutely put on amazing and really, really good racing. I think this track will be really suited well for a race like this. Look at Kansas, for example. The racing at Kansas Speedway has been so good with the next-gen car. That track's put on amazing racing in the last couple of years. We had that incredible photo finish, and that racing every single time has been amazing at that track. And I think Chicagoland would put on a really, really good show. Now, obviously, of course, there are some things that are going to need to be done in order for Chicagoland to be back on the NASCAR schedule next year. But I think, especially with the numbers that we've heard, around 4 to 5 million, I think that is certainly possible that they could put that kind of money in and get the track back on the map. But I think this track has earned the right to be back on the schedule. I have been clamoring for it over the course of the last couple of years. If you've gone through my channel, if you've gone through the predictions for the schedules, I've said Chicagoland needs to be back on the schedule because it didn't leave the schedule because the racing sucked there. It left the schedule because of the pandemic and not getting the opportunity to be back on there. And I think that if you just do a few things to the track, and especially with the heat that's behind it and the fact that everybody's saying it, when there's smoke, there's fire, I think it is very likely that it will be on the schedule next season. Now, obviously, there are still some questions around what exactly needs to be done to get the track up and running, but I really do believe that it is going to happen next year, that Chicagoland is going to be back on the schedule, and it is going to be back on the map. And to me, that's what's so exciting, right, is that you might be getting a fan-favorite racetrack that put on really good shows. We all remember 2018, the incredible slide job call that Dale Jr. had, with Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson battling for the win. And that race itself, not just that battle, but that race itself being really, really good, helped NBC really get a lot better. And then, of course, you think about 2019, the all-time great battle between Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson for the win. Kyle Larson looking for his final win, first win with Chip Ganassi that season, while Alex Bowman was looking for his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at that time. And we just saw a great battle between those two, and that was during the 550 era. It doesn't matter the type of air package that you ran there, the racing there was always really, really fun and really, really great to watch. And I think Chicagoland Speedway, if it does in fact get on the schedule next year, I think the next-gen car will race great. But not just that, I think the Xfinity Series will run really good because the Xfinity Series racing a mile and a half has been absolutely fun to watch and really fun to see. But I think that the racing is just so good at a track like Chicagoland, for example, because again, it races very similar to other types of tracks like Kansas, like Charlotte, like Las Vegas, for example. I think the racing there would be good. Now, again, the fans would have to show up for the track to stay on long term, and especially with Chicago Street Course wanting to come back as early as 2027, it could be an alternate thing where one year you go to Chicagoland Speedway, then the next year you go to Chicago Street Course, then you go back 1 year, then you go back the other year. I think that's actually certainly a possibility for the schedule next year down the road, because that's going to be the big thing is, will the Chicago Street Course be on the schedule again past 2026? Because they're not going to be on the schedule next year. NASCAR doesn't want to leave that market. I think that is going to be a really big thing to watch at this point. But I do think that because of the increased chatter going on at the moment right now around the schedule, around that, I think that's one of the big holdups. So I do think that it's very likely, but you are going to see Chicagoland on the schedule for next season. And I think most fans want to see it back. I've been clamoring for it to be back on the schedule for quite some time. I am very confident in saying this. I do think it will be back next year. There's too much momentum around it. There's too much hype around it. I think Chicagoland has earned the right opportunity to get on there next year. I think the racing is going to be phenomenal. I think the racing is going to be solid. Just like the San Diego race, I think is actually going to be really good. I think that you are going to see this race on the schedule next year. And to be honest, I think it is really exciting. I think it's great for the sport. There is a very great chance and a very good opportunity next year that we are going to see a race at the Chicagoland Speedway in 2026. I think that's good to see. Hope it does happen. I like to see that track come back like Montreal. I think it will come back more than likely, and I think there's a good chance it will be coming back next year on the NASCAR schedule. And I think we'll see some great racing. A lot of the heavy hitters run really well at that racetrack. And now we're going to head jump on to the final major story of today's episode as we're talking about Daniel Suarez. Now, we all know currently at the moment that Daniel Suarez will not be returning to Trackhouse Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026. We are expecting next year that Connor Zilisch, who currently drives the 88 car for Junior Motorsports, who is having an absolute phenomenal season with 8 straight top 5 finishes, including 3 wins during that 8-race stretch. We are expecting that he will be announced in the coming weeks. He'll probably be announced in the number 99 car or the 87, whichever number they use for the 2026 year, meaning that Daniel Suarez will not return to this team next season. Now, there has been a lot of speculation that Daniel Suarez could end up over at Legacy Motor Club in 2026 if they do end up getting a third car. Well, Jimmy Johnson has confirmed as of recently that that is not likely going to be the case. He says he is a really good friend of Daniel Suarez, and he thinks that Daniel Suarez deserves a chance and opportunity to race in the NASCAR Cup Series next year. But he says that even if they do get a third charter, he says that that is not what the plan is right now. We don't really think the time is going to fit for Daniel Suarez to end up over at the team in the 2026 year. What this tells me is, one, Legacy Motor Club does have a driver lined up. I mentioned a little bit ago, I think that obviously is Jesse Love, who could sign a development deal with Legacy Motor Club and race for that team. I don't think it is going to be Corey Heim, who is going to be that driver, despite him driving for the team in a couple races last year. I don't think that Corey Heim is going to be the option. And when it was kind of talked about him being the candidate for that team, that really didn't make a lot of sense to me because the direction the team is going. They're going younger at this moment right now. You think about 2 drivers over at Legacy. Joe Hunter's like 28 or 29, and Eric Jones is like 30 at this point, or 29. So they have 2 younger drivers, and I think that Jimmy wants to have a team that's generally very, very young. And I don't think Daniel Suarez really fits that mold or fits that criteria currently at the moment. Also, if they go to a third car, I just don't see Daniel Suarez running extremely well currently at the moment in that car. Because let's talk about Suarez real quick. I don't really think there's a good Cup option for Daniel Suarez going into next year. Because all the good Cup rides are set. All the Hendrick drivers are signed through next year, including Alex Bowman, including Kyle Larson, and Chase Elliott. Look at Joe Gibbs Racing. He's not going to go back to JGR. He drove for that team. He struggled with that team. All 4 drivers are set through 2026. Yes, Hamlin's technically in a contract year this year, but Danny Hamlin is going to sign a contract extension more than likely with Joe Gibbs Racing. 2311, yes, they're illegal stuff, but 2311 is not going to be an option if they stick around next year, and all 3 drivers are under contract through 2026 right now. And then you think about other teams, like Trackhouse. He's not going back there next year. RCR, I don't think that's a possibility. I think that when you look at the options, and I think there are a few that some will bring up, the 10 car for Colleague Racing. I don't think that's an option next year. Yes, I know Ty Dillon hasn't been amazing, but the last 5 weeks, he's been running actually really well, and his numbers have actually been very impressive during that stretch of time. So I don't think the 10 car is going to be an option, and they're negotiating a contract extension with him as we speak currently at the moment. So I don't think the 10 car for him is going to be an option. The only other option I think may actually be a possibility is the 7 car for Spire. There's been speculation that we could be seeing that a changeover at the 7 car for 2026. Some think that Justin Haley may not be back in the car. I think Justin Haley at least deserves one more year in the number 7. And here's why I think he deserves one more season. He didn't get a fair shake, in my opinion. Ronnie Childers left the team after the first 4 for the year. The car chief got let go and brought over, of course, to work with Ty Gibbs. That 54 car has been a lot better, if you've noticed. And the pit crew that he had at the beginning of the year, which was really good, got moved over to Kyle Larson. And all of Kyle Larson's guys got moved over to work with Justin Haley. So I think Justin Haley deserves another year. And I really don't see Suarez going into that 7 car, to be honest, and running a lot better than Justin Haley. So I don't see that working out. I think for Daniel Suarez right now, I know he doesn't want to go back to the NASCAR Xfinity competition, but I really think at the moment right now, because there's not really a lot of openings available, I think the best option for Daniel Suarez at the moment is to go back down to the NASCAR Xfinity Series and race there full time. And I think there's one team in particular that makes the most sense to me, and that is Junior Motorsports. There could be as many as 2 potential openings there in 2026, or 3, depending on if they have 5 full-time cars, because there is a potential possibility they may have 5 full-time cars, with the 9 car being a potential option. He drove the 9 car earlier this year. We got to remember this. He drove that car in Mexico City and won the race. And Junior Motorsports, they are the fastest team in the NASCAR Xfinity Series currently at the moment. And he brings funding and sponsorship to the table. I think that Junior Motorsports, even though they have a lot of funding with that program, they just signed a really big deal with the company, I do believe that they absolutely would take extra money to get that program continue to be a lot better. And I think Suarez actually would be very, very strong. Now, some are going to say, what about Kaulig's Xfinity program? There's uncertainty around that right now. We talked about it in the video earlier. There's talk Kaulig may not have an Xfinity program next year. They may be going truck racing next year. So that might not even be an option for next season. Granted, Big Machine could be an option. They get a 2nd car. And I think he'd be a good option here because if Nick Sanchez, let's say, he goes to the 2 car, if Jesse Love moves up, he could be the potential candidate for the 48 car. But I think right now that the best option is a Junior Motorsports team. Because Carson Quaffle may not even be in the 1 car next year. There is a chance he may go to Team Penske. And then we talk about Zillage, him moving up next year more than likely. I just think at the moment right now, the best option, you got to look at it. I think the best option currently at this moment is going to be going over to Junior Motorsports. I really think that's the only good option he has currently right now, and I think that's what he needs to kind of focus on, is going over a team like Junior Motorsports and rebuilding your career, because there are going to be some good options out there. There's a chance Kyle Busch may not be back at RCR 2027. Could that be a landing spot for him in 27? That could be. Spire could be an option past next year. And then again, JGR could be an option again down the road for 27, with Hamlin being unknown and Briscoe's contract being unknown, and most drivers like Bell and Reddick and Chastain and all of them not knowing what they're doing past next year, though I expect Chastain to stick around. But I think at the end of the day, I just look at what's going on, and I do believe that he will probably end up in Xfinity. Again, there's just not a good cup ride available. I think those are really the best options he has currently at the moment for 2026. We'll see where Suarez goes, but we know for sure he will not be going to Legacy Motor Club in 2026. So that is going to today's Law NASCAR News and Motorsports News episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on the video. Where do you think Daniel Suarez ends up next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about the future of things, including Chicagoland Speedway? Let me know it in the comments below. Later today on the channel, we're going to have reactions to the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race and IRP, depending on the weather. Tomorrow on the channel, we'll have reactions to the Xfinity race from Indianapolis, and of course, the Cup reactions to the Brickyard 400 from qualifying. And then, of course, on Sunday, the starting lineup video for the Brickyard 400 and the Cup review as well, maybe a Shane Van Gisbergen video. And then, of course, on Monday, we'll have a NASCAR news video dropping as well. We're going to have content coming on people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Carl Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ball Ross Chastain, Clayton Farland, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Connor Zillage, Carson Quaffle, Team Penske, the lawsuit between 2011 and front row. If more comes out from that, and some other stuff as well, like Hendrick Motorsports and all this stuff coming out really soon, like Jake Finch and Corey Day and Kyle Larson as well, and Chase Elliott. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching in today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.